A few weeks ago, Red Bull hosted a League of His Own event featuring a variety of teams from Europe facing off against the 2024 World Champions, T1. This was more of a for fun event, with T1 having various role swaps and restrictions placed on them. Notably, T1 played under a fearless draft, where they couldn't play any champions that were previously played in their games, and with Carrier taking a break at the time due to his 1 month of mandatory military training, the T1 streamer Untara subbed in until a special guest arrived towards the later parts of the event. There's going to be a lot of spaghetti happening because T1 are playing on their off roles most of the time, but I just wanted to talk about some things I noticed throughout the games in regards to the overall macro and decision making made by all of the teams. I'm not going to cover everything since I don't want this video to just be a highlight reel, so we're probably going to be skipping a lot. I also just want a meme, honestly. For just his first game of T1 versus NNO, both teams agreed to a nemesis strat, which meant that they got to choose champions the opposing team played. According to the commentators, there was an agreement not to completely sabotage the picks so that the game would still be fun to watch and play. So if you're wondering why neither team drafted Yuumi jungle or something, this is why. Faker gains NNO IRL, and Noe responds with a gank of his own on T1 IRL. What a crazy macro decision that was.
Is your Riven still really good?
What?
Your Riven.
What?
Are you still good on Riven?
Are you serious?
Faker decides to draft Master Yi jungle for NNO, since T1 has a T-mode to counter him with his blind. That's kinda crazy. The game starts with all 10 players having a dance off mid, with Faker being the only one on the side, hide on bushing, before committing a war crime live in front of millions of viewers.
There's no way! No way is he gonna see out! Come on, Faker, get in the spirit of Christmas!
Doran scratches his head on Xerath, which is a direct reference to how the previous top laner of T1, Zeus, got his head bonked by the World's Trophy. Faker gets a ward off on NNO's blue side, and since the rest of T1 are taking up space in both sides of their jungle, they roughly know that Gurren is starting on his red side. I have no clue what's going on with the Huts right now. We got the T1 NNO player cans on the wrong side. I also don't really like how the CS is like embedded into the champions, especially on Teemo, because the colors are like blending into each other. Noe wards T1 Raptors, eventually confirming that Teemo is doing a red side start, so NNO knows where he'll be for the next minute of the game. Since the Draven Xerath combo of T1 have been bullying the bot lane, they ping their incoming minions to signal a dive on the next wave.
They are going under the tower. There's a knock-up coming on through. The blind is in, and Karmine goes down for first blood.
T1 gets a successful dive off, but Gurren shows up just in time to trade the kill. He eventually decides to just go home, as he knows there's literally nothing he can do to find a potentially invisible Teemo in his jungle, and Rakan shows up a scanner to clear Untara out. Tolkien uses his time to ward T1 golems, since NNO knows that Teemo started his red side in the first clear, so they can guess Untara's next pathing based on when he decides to go for the golems again. T1 then pinged the NNO blue side, expecting Gurren to be there since the camps are respawning soon, but the NNO bot lane manages to push Doran out with a slow pushing wave so that the Master Yi can steal T1's blue side jungle before T1 shows up. Since NNO got vision of Untara from the Camille ward earlier, and with both mid and bot lane being pushed in, Gurren knew he had enough time to go for the counter jungle. T1 actually hasn't directly seen where Master Yi is yet, so they don't know he's just walking around in the jungle. The T1 bot lane goes aggressive to look for a pick, but Gurren is right behind ready to gank. NNO finish off Owner, with a 1v1 starting up in both top and mid lane. Noe stands up like he's being abducted by a UFO, as he solo kills Gumayushi with the empowered rockets. Tolkien solo kills Faker as well, as Doran somehow also gets caught out bot lane. You can see just how good T1's teamwork is by the way they all lost their lanes at the exact same time. Let's go! Let's f***ing go! I got Faker! Dude, it's so funny because the player cams are a little ahead of the actual game. So you see Noe turning to the crown for a second without context, and then boom, he solo kills Gumayushi mid again. And oh, they fixed the cameras. And NNO find the Riven alone in top lane, so they begin the chase as Faker tries his best to run away. Gurren runs at Faker as if he owed him money and secures the kill like his life depended on it. But since Master Yi showed himself top, he won't immediately look for a 3-man dive and quickly pokes down the NNO bot lane for 2 more kills. Gurren runs at Untara as if he owes him money as well, but T1 have learned from seeing Faker get jumped and back Teemo up as they pick up Master Yi, while Karmine runs away after witnessing a murder. I like Teemo's little arm wiggle here as he gets CC by the Rakan. Dude, imagine after a long day at work, you queue up for ranked and you're super excited to see that your entire team is made up of T1 players after they won Worlds. You lock in your signature pick Teemo jungle, you look down, and everyone is inting. Gurren shows up bot again to bully Faker for the level 1, which prompts T1 to go for the Herald on the other side of the map, and that prompts the Master Yi to confidently take T1's blue side jungle. Just textbook macro to macro play. Owner runs mid and dies for no reason, which leaves Master Yi to run mid and die for no reason. And that leads to Seraphine TPing mid to die for no reason. Just textbook macro to macro play. Faker gets caught during the dragon fight for playing in League of Legends and dies. People might think that he's inting, but he's actually just mentally preparing himself for when he has to play against the boss later in the event, so good thinking on his part. And NNO start Baron when all of T1 are up, because f*** YOLO I guess, and after Gumayushi takes down Rakan on the top side, Teemo steals the Baron so his team doesn't flame him for picking Teemo jungle. This was a great play by Untara, because now no one can blame him for the loss for any reason. Faker somehow dies again off screen, Like, it's actually impressive how often he's getting caught out this game. Doran does his best Zoe ult impression as he jumps over the wall and then immediately flashes back over. Karmine has a really nice dodge on the Draveny by dashing to a Gurren before going in with the ult charm. Like, that was pretty clean, I'm not gonna lie. Faker dies again, showing the boss how it's done, while Gurren gets chunked out by the poke and has to meditate in the corner like an introvert at a party until he can barely walk away with 1 HP with the social battery depleted.
Gurren could be in trouble here. Gets the damage reduction, gets the Alpha Strike, and almost gets a kill. In goes Karni, but it's a little bit too late in the health bars. Blinking, but not going down for T1. Tonka trying to finish the job now as he dives onto the backline. No way. Alongside him, the health bars low for T1. Guma's got to clean up, but he doesn't have the damage.
NNO win the fight in the jungle, and Noe walks into a shroom and almost dies. Meanwhile, Rakan walks into a shroom and actually dies, and somehow gives away the scuttle. Touchdown! T1 go for a Baron Rush and question mark ping a Gurren, wondering why he's not willingly walking into the minefield of Teemo shrooms. Riven finally dies for the 10th time, and now NNO have to finish the game fast since Faker hit his 10 death power spike. A Gurren and Karni try to recall immediately to stop the T1 push, but they step on a shroom which stops both of the recalls for a bit, and Noe gets a crazy empowered stun on top of the Camille, which leaves only Owner left, but he eventually goes down as well from the tower.
Keeps him in place, and Noe arrives to clean it all up, but Owner flashes in to find an execution. Tony shuts him down instead.
When Doran got immediately rooted by the Seraphine E here, I was kind of confused because the Xerath didn't get hit by anything before this, but I didn't know going Rat Eyes on Seraphine made the E root immediately on the first hit. So yeah, today I learned. Gumayusi tries to also hit his 10th death power spike and gets one shot by Noe, but Doran is angry and tries to snipe Noe with his ultimate, but only lands 1 3-pointer out of 5, leading to a shooting percentage of 20% from 24 feet. Doran gets angrier from his abysmal shooting, so he decides to face check a bush and goes down immediately, with the 2 other nearby members of T1 going down shortly after. NNO push for the win, and Gumayusi sees his montage play and goes in 1v5. But he makes a crucial mistake and forgets that he didn't hit his 10th death power spike and goes down as well, leaving only Faker alive to defend the base. Faker tries his absolute hardest to fight alone and almost manages to kill the entire team and just barely survives to fight another day. Wait, never mind. NNO beat T1 with a combined 70 kills across both teams in 36 minutes, averaging around 2 kills a minute, putting T1 at 0-1 against Europe. If you really think about it though, Faker was the one that drafted all the champions for NNO, so technically he's the real winner of the game. Oh my god, this was a fake jungle. Oh, JK. General may start with a red-sided raid to the jungle, and manage to sneak in without T1 knowing. They get a successful Raptor steal off, and Faker angrily walks away, wondering why people are tryharding in the video game. Before all that, Nautilus put down a ward on his own Raptors early on, which spots Faker as he immediately runs over to counter jungle. Ika looks to contest Faker a bit, but decides he's not getting paid enough for this and runs back to mid lane. Owner actually warded the Tribush since he knew that the Skarner was on his side of the map and could potentially gank him, but he seems to have forgotten that Skarner is an OP-ass champ and can go through walls, and has a burn flash to escape the gank. Similarly, Genomates warded the Golem since they knew that Lee Sin was on the bot side counter jungling, but they seem to have forgotten that Lee Sin is an OP-ass champ and can go through walls and trades 2 kills for 1. Gumayusi on Braum intentionally autos a minion here before the dive to make it look like he was taking turret aggro, which made the Nautilus and Lux change their spells early, and T1 juggled the tower aggro perfectly after Faker finally gets into range.
Ow! Might be Guma in trouble.
Guma can hop back here to Faker. Guardian proc is big. They're slowly losing or winning the extended fight. Excuse me. Concussive Blood's doing so much work. Flash in. Gold card ready to go. Only gonna land on the Erdante. Zizki Bish barely able to get out. Ika. Valk over the top. Huntara about to fall. That Corki's about to tear through this team.
Doran finally shows up late to the fight like a typical ADC, and General may secure a 2 for 1. Faker starts up the grubs, and with Braum already in the area, it looks like it should be a free secure for T1, but Owner wants to spice things up a bit. So he decides to go in 1v2 onto the Lux Nautilus and does a good amount of damage, which gives Gumayusi all the confidence in the world to go for the dive, forcing the rest of T1 to drop everything and follow up as well. Braum somehow slaps Skarner's side view mirror as he drives past, and T1 go for the 4-man dive.
Not going to connect on that initial piece of CC, only level 5. Means this is a pretty easy dive for T1. They have more members in the area. The 4v3 does it already down. Nice lock-up though on Untara. Yeah, nowhere to go.
T1 followed their standard strat of sending their bot laners top and top laner bot a minute before the grub spawn so that they can buy items and secure vision around the area early on. But Genomates don't want to just give up the space for free and go for a 2v2 fight against T1's bot laners. A great 2-man Skarner ult lands, which forces a Kaden flash and barrier, as Genomates secure an easy grub shortly after.
Heroes needs to get out of here. Bit of a questionable TP.
Faker gets a nice insect kickoff, but Twisted Fate has to wait until after the Jax Counter-Strike goes down before he can gold card him. and is unfortunately stunned in a small duration before his card goes down. Faker also tries to auto the golden to get energy back to Q onto Jax, but cancels his auto on accident, and by the time he gets the auto off, the Jax is just a bit too far out of range for the Q2, but T1 still managed to finish off the kill after Ono is forced to flash to get the stun chain. Dude, this entire sequence is so tragic from a support player's point of view. Garner goes on to Caitlyn with the Lux TPing in. Right before the Lux binding can land, Braum perfectly positions the shield to prevent Caitlyn from getting hit, and T1 managed to get away from the initial engage. Skarner goes for another engage onto Braum this time, and with another nice shield into double Braum mode, he barely managed to dodge a Skarner Q by dashing to his ADC, making it out alive. But even though Guma played this fight pretty much as perfect as he could have, Doran gets hit by a Lux Q and just gets deleted immediately. Like, dude, if I was a support in this situation, I would have been pissed, man. Gumayushi roams down to help Ono with the tower, and Kaden died again. Ono is about to lose his Mega Form, which prompts the Jax to engage with his Nautilus nearby, but T1 looked to help out from the side. Crucifix starts teleporting in, which makes Gentleman's have to start backing off. Gumayushi shields absolutely nothing as he waddles into the fight, and after getting into range, he gets another clutch 2-man Braum mode, which cancels the Nautilus hook into the wall. Meanwhile, Lux comes down from mid lane and throws out her spells, but ironically doesn't see Lee Sin, the only champion in the game that can't see her either, and she goes down as well after being roundhouse kicked in the back of the head. But Untara wants to pad his KDA some more, and teleports once again with his ult right onto the two members of Gentleman's trying to run away, and finish off Erdote as T1 secured 2 kills. But Skarner is angry after seeing all of his teammates dead, so he goes in for an angle that mathematically doesn't exist in any universe, and he's met with a gold card, a Braum stun, a Gnar stun, and eventually goes down after not being able to move for a few years. I honestly don't know what the plan was here. Up until now, I felt that something was off about this game, and then I realized it was because Faker didn't die 10 times yet like in the last game. And as if on cue, Faker gets inspiration from the epic Skarner engage a minute ago, and decides to go for a play of all time. Faker goes in for a kick and misses his smite on the ground by accidentally clicking on the Skarner, and he gets hit by the Skarner stun, into Nautilus hook, into Nautilus auto, into Jax stun, into the Lux laser. He is truly the best player in the world to have seen the play by Skarner once and be able to perfectly recreate it immediately. He won't look onto Ica mid lane, and I want you guys to see how hilarious this entire fight is. Untara barely makes it into range with the Twist of Fate gold card, but Corki flashes the moment he's hit, and T1 don't really register that fast enough. So you see Lee Sin Q barely missing, followed by the Caitlyn Q barely missing, and then the Braum Q is also barely out of range. So every single spell misses as a Jax shows up behind them. But that's somehow not even the end of it. Faker misses one more Lee Sin Q in point blank range, the Lux Q by Comp goes into a different dimension, the Nautilus Q on the bottom right also misses the wall. Meanwhile, Faker on the side misses another Q as Gentleman's finally show up and go for the flashes Doran. Faker finally lands a Q after a kick onto Corki, but he eventually goes down as well, with Owner following shortly afterwards. This was probably the best worst teamfight I've seen in a while on pro play, and that's saying a lot. Caitlyn gets caught up by himself like a typical ADC player. Meanwhile, Jax gets caught up by himself like a typical top player. I'm not gonna lie, the next 10 minutes was basically just someone getting caught out in the middle of nowhere. After Untara gets his ultimate cancelled, Gnar has to TP in to keep him alive, and after eventually picking off the Jax, he won't do the typical rush Baron final resort. They know that Gentlemen need to send at least 2 members to deal with the bot push, so they basically make Gnar keep pushing with the full knowledge that he's going to die, because that would give T1 the time needed to secure the Baron while they had the numbers advantage. However, Comp and Erdote play really well and somehow managed to pick off 2 members of T1 as Faker and Doran eventually finish up the objective. But with the long death timers on T1, Gentleman's push for the win, and after a nice Lux Q predict onto Doran, they take the second game at 35 minutes, putting T1 at 0-2 against Europe. Oh yeah, it's time for some absolute cinema. Only a few seconds into the game, and I'm already loving what I'm seeing. I love how just having a sound in the game makes pro teams super paranoid on what his level 1 could be. Like, he could be camping a bush, he could be getting ready to proxy the first wave, he could try to counter with his passive, anything's possible with the Scion. Miles does his usual strategy of giving up first blood, then immediately flashing onto his opponent when he gets back. Reckless preps bot to be gankable by clearing the tri-bush, but the timing of this seems a little suspicious, so Gumayushi hits the vision cone for his laners, and T1 spot the Viego. Since both teams know where the junglers are, Gumayushi tries to rush the bot scuttle without smiting, before sprinting to the top side scuttle, as Viego tries to chase him, but doesn't get there in time as Kayn secures both scuttles.
Nice stun from Owner. Nice poke back from Faker. W the wrong way though, but the heal is good. Crownie is definitely overstayed, forces the flash out. Reckless can't quite finish off Faker.
It's always so interesting seeing the early pathing junglers take in pro play. Like for this game, both of the junglers opted to go for the fast 9 camp clear to reach level 6 as soon as possible. This basically just means doing the standard 6 camp full clear into Scuttle, into re-clearing the first 2 camps they did again before recalling for items. This just takes advantage of the jungle respawn timers for the fastest EXP gain, since Kayn and Viego in particular benefit a lot from having the ultimates right away for a potential objective fight. Since T1's bot wave is slowly pushing, and with Ezreal being able to farm safely, Owner uses his time to ditch his ADC to go for a mid roam.
Alright, lockdown is there. Nemesis has nowhere to go, trying to get the scatter out. Nice play overall. Can find the turn. Doesn't have enough movement speed.
Faker decides that playing safe is for cowards and chooses to fight out the 1v2 under a huge minion wave and actually gets kinda close to getting something out of it, but Viego shows up just in time to secure the kill. Owner tries his hardest to run from Faker's long lost brother and almost goes down, but manages to barely survive. Gumayusi goes for the grubs, seeing Viego on the other side of the map, and Los Ratones trades with the dragon. Faust gets caught breathing in the river and gets chased down by the Kayn. Viego, seeing the Kayn on the top side, goes for some kind of cross-map play on the bot side, but gets caught up by the T1 bot laners before anyone can get into position. Karmine gets level 6 on Varus and uses his ult immediately on level up, picking out the Xerath before eventually killing off Faker as well. I think Faker autoed a minion here since his last auto didn't go through, but I'm not entirely sure. Los Ratones go for a super aggressive 2v2 fight, but Owner lands a nice stun that stops all the potential follow-up damage, and after Crown hits the flash out, Reckless gets a really nice Jano to stop the Xerath ult, and T1 had to back off after seeing Viego in the area. Faust hits a 0-3 power spike and sprints at T1's bot lane as Crown teleports in, and since both Faker and Owner still have their flashes down, Faust successfully commits Road Rage and crashes into the Xerath before following Faker over the wall and finishing him off as well. A 2v2 starts with the 2 top laners and the junglers, as Untara gets Omega Tunnel Vision trying to chase down the Viego, and Guma gets bursted down with the Viego W into ult before Kayn can get his ultimate off, and Untara goes down as well while Owner finishes off the Viego from the side, leading to a free grubs for Los Ratones. Karmine lands another ult onto Owner but doesn't have enough mana for his Q, but manages to get Xerath's flash as Kayn continues to bully the Viego in the jungle. But since Los Ratones see both bot laners recalling and knows Guma is topside, they push to get the turret platings while T1 set up an interesting play. Dorn puts down the trinket, which Faker starts teleporting to, but the ward is kinda really bad, not gonna lie, and Faker can't manage to catch up after the Janna ult, and after Nemesis teleports in as well, T1 give up 2 more kills for nothing. Faust dies again, but it do be like that sometimes, and he gets into another car crash the moment he spawns, clearing the bot wave. Guma has some kind of personal vendetta as he continues to bully the Viego in the jungle, but Los Ratones aren't going to let that slide in their house, so they 5-man flank him from every single side and pick him off once again. He will somehow get flanked again on all sides a minute later, and after Owner goes down, Faust gets really excited and starts driving into the enemy jungle as if his brakes stop working and slams into a wall. T1 realizes they're kinda running it and decides to double down by sprinting at Crown in mid lane. Nemesis manages to snipe Faker after teleporting in, but after a little bit more fighting, Akshan manages to get 2 kills, which revives both of the T1 members that just died. Dorn starts hitting the mid tower and then recreates Baus' car accident by swinging into the wall face first before going down, showing how versatile he really is.
The one who dies all the time and the one who wins everything. And the one who dies all the time just won the 1v1.
It's also, he missed his Q.
The unkillable Demon King versus the very
most
killable, the most killable Demon King.
Baus waddles into the entirety of T1 as if he owns the place, and after giving the hope of a possible huge flank from the side, he dies just as fast as he arrived, and everyone walks away like nothing happened. A dragon fight starts and Los Ratones feel the power of the T1 ARAM comp, as everyone shoots out their ultimates from a mile away, eventually chunking down Nemesis enough for Guma to assassinate him from the side. Owner takes a page from Baus' book and gets one shot out of nowhere on the side by Crowny, but T1 slowly chases him shortly after, taking him down in return. But T1 suddenly loses his object permanence and forgets that Viego is still in the area, as he gets picked off as well. Baus gets engaged on and he skates into the dragon pit, but then he kind of forgets to walk out and chooses to play Mundo Dodgeball by himself as T1 uses for target practice, eventually poking him down. Dorn saw one too many action movies and tries to go full James Bond mode into 3 members of Los Ratones, which just turbo ints it and gives away a homie stock as Owner, not wanting to be outdone by the newcomer, also gets one shot by Nemesis in front of the dragon, which leads to Los Ratones eventually securing the objective. Gumayusi runs out of options and tries to look for some kind of play onto Baus, and does indeed attempt some kind of play as he gets exploded by the Silent, similar to what happens when a mosquito flies in front of a train moving at 100 miles per hour. But Gumayusi thinks it's a fluke and tries to assassinate Baus again in the dragon fight, kind of forgetting that he's the jungler and needs to stay alive to secure the objective, and there goes Dragon. Doran tries to avenge his fallen jungler and gets miserably taken down. Untara tries to avenge his fallen mid laner and gets slammed into the ground. Owner tries to avenge his fallen top laner and gets beaten up on all sides. Gumayusi comes back to life and turbo sprints it again like a moth to a flame. And Faker, the only survivor, doesn't want part in any of this, but eventually joins his teammates in the afterlife, as Los Ratones take game 3 in 36 minutes, and T1 go down 0-3 in the event, proving that gods can indeed bleed. Like a lot. Literal gallons. T1 are tired of losing, so for the last 2 games, they bring in the special guest Reckless to play with the team one last time, which I think was honestly really sweet. For this game, both T1 and G2 were put under a role swap, so you can bet there were going to be random things happening everywhere. And oh my god, Faker Bard! The team started another dance off mid, but Faker, being the international criminal he is, makes an instant beeline to attack Diana with absolutely no regard for human life. Sejuani also managed to get a ward off on the G2 red side without being spotted, and Faker clears the ward based on his raptors, but T1 knows the G2 jungle pathing, while G2 had no idea which side Sejuani started on. I like the small mind game here by the Ziggs to throw his W and then not detonate it, making Sivir use spell shield for nothing.
Now Doran coming in, this should be an easy dive.
Caps trying to get a couple of last hits, dodges away from the knockup, goes back underneath the tower.
T1 kinda try to figure out what the play is here as both supports hover around mid lane, but T1 eventually decide to ruin Christmas for Caps and portals in, leading to another kill on the Flash's top laner. The G2 bot laners try to look for something while Bard is top, but can't really do much by themselves against a Sivir and have to back off. Faker finds a weird looking chime in the jungle and stalls for time as everyone looks to converge. Hansama gets a nice 3-man taunt as Yasuo goes in with the Q3 and kills Faker, who flashed straight into the wall. He would eventually trace the kill, and Oden makes a 500 IQ move as he takes the portal left behind by Bard and dashes away using the dragon, being able to execute to the tier 2 tower a few moments later. Reckless tries to push out the wave, but Hansama wants to maintain his 100% KP and looks aggressive onto the Sivir without flash. Reckless didn't realize that the Galio got them hands, and after punching him over and over, Hansama manages to get the solo kill. I'm like fairly certain that Faker landed one single kill in the last 7 minutes, which is one more than Bard players usually hit by this time, so he is doing splendidly. Hansama wants to maintain his 100% KP, so he runs at the M-Pesa, potentially spoiling the plot for Arcane Season 3, and manages to take down Gumayushi as Broken Blade comes from the side, looking to die the low HP Sejuani. Doran screams in agony, wondering why anyone would want to play this terrible role, and goes down from the 3 members of G2. Bard runs back and forth in the river, wondering if he left a stove on, but can't seem to come to a conclusion. Cat sees an opportunity and looks onto Reckless, but with a nice flash, manages to escape from the Trundle. Meanwhile, Owner gets engaged on mid lane and gets barely tipped by the Galio, but walks away to safety. During all that, Bard still couldn't remember if his stove was on, and looks visibly distressed as he portals into absolutely nothing. Caps once again sees an opportunity and runs onto Reckless, but without his ult and flash, he goes down pretty easily, as Hansama, somewhere on the map, winces as he loses his 100% KP. A huge fight starts up by Grubs as both teams look to engage the 4v4.
Hansama soaking some damage, gets the taunt off, still has that locket and does set up with a knockup. He goes down in the end. It's a shutdown into Guma's pocket. They're chasing Skumond as well. Oda gets out with his life. Doran dodging, ducking, dipping, diving. Broken Blade finds one.
Faker and Owner take the portal to chase Ziggs, and Bard is just 1 minion off from hitting level 6. So he takes a slight detour to pick up a chime on the side, and the Rob is forced to flash, but it doesn't matter as Yone cleans up the kill. I don't know why, but it's so funny watching Faker's Bard move. Like, he's just kind of walling around everywhere. Caps engages Yone as Doran shows up from the river, but Trundle's an OPS champ when he's on the enemy team and forces Owner's flash. But T1 realizes that the dude kinda hurts and opts to play around their spells as Reckless slowly makes his way up. Sivir angrily arrives as he remembers all the times he got bullied in the bot lane, and Caps finally goes down. Meanwhile, G2 tries to dive Gumayushi, but Diana someone gets 3-shot by a turret and goes down, as they desperately run away from the true carry of T1, the Bardo. And after a valiant effort, both Galio and Yasuo go down after a nice Bardo prevents the escape. Guwan gets ganked mid, and honestly, he kinda Giga Smurfs the movement around his wind wall here, but there's not much more he can do as the Sejuani ult lands, and Bard totally doesn't intentionally take the kill from his ADC. Another fight breaks out top between Owner and Caps, and just before Sivir can complete the teleport, Bard walks up and totally doesn't intentionally take the kill from his ADC, as Reckless contemplates on if he should report the Bard. T1 started Baron for fun, and G2 super blast going into the middle of everyone as the fight starts. For a solid 10 seconds, I honestly can't tell what's happening, nor can I tell who's winning, but eventually Sejuani comes out of the stasis and secures the Baron as both teams get low on HP. T1 slowly look to re-engage the remaining members of G2, as Faker goes in the entirely opposite direction as per usual Bard players, and after a brief chase, Doran finishes off Ziggs and the rest of T1 push down mid. T1 then see a dive opportunity on the bot turret, but there seems to have been a communication error as Doran takes like 80 tower shots trying to dive by himself and manages to survive to fight another day. G2 ganked Gumayushi in the top lane from all sides, but they forgot to account for the fact that M-Pesa was designed in 2024 and can dash like 50 times, and escapes while giving Yasuo a few backhand slaps on the way out. Galio gets a wave of inspiration, but seems to forget that he is not M-Pesa and just immediately dies from 3 members of T1. Yone had the exact same thought, but also forgot that he is not M-Pesa and just immediately dies from 3 members of G2. Owner promises to his team that he won't get caught out alone again, but promises remain to be broken and gets ganked the moment he decides to get out of bed in the morning. Cap starts a fight onto Gumayushi, which forces T1 to respond, and G2 instantly look to rush the Baron while Trundle stalls for time. They manage to kill Caps, but Broken Blade secures the objective as G2 try their best to run away with the buff. A nice 2-man bottle lands as T1 arrive, and they continue the chase onto the remaining members of G2 and get 2 more kills. Bard finds Caps camping in the bush with his W, and starts the chase as he locks with the Trundle. The bot lane duo of T1 slowly but surely whittles down Caps, as another fight starts up in the bot lane between the other players. Faker arrives from his sabbatical and gets a clutch flash double stun onto Yasuo and Galio, and throws all the meeps he has in his arsenal, going unstoppable. He somehow gets 3 kills before going down from the Zig Satchel, as Faker contemplates becoming a Bard main like everyone else on this channel. After taking Baron, T1 looks to end the game and G2 make one final stand outside their base.
T1 goes in looking for the all-in, looking for the damage. They just don't do any damage though. T1 are still full HP. Skewbot dives back into the action and falls immediately.
T1 chase down the last few members and finally push for the win, as they take game 4 and finally gets on the board 1-3 against Europe, further cementing the fact that the only reason T1 became the 2024 World Champions was because they had Reckless on their team. It's the final game, which means T1 are back to their original roles, ready to try hard. There's also an interesting matchup between the 2 top laners, as you have Doran, the newest top laner for T1, playing off against Kana, a previous top laner for T1. Casey go for a level 1 cheese with Silas that is identical to the one BOG used in the World Finals against T1, as he dashes over the wall looking for a cheese play. But after a bit of poke, Reckless walks out mostly unscathed. An aggressive 2v2 starts up in the bot lane as Gumayushi gets targeted, and even though both the Rel and Caitlyn spells land onto the Jhin, T1 look onto the Caitlyn while their spells are on cooldown and forces the early flash. Casey look again for the fight while Jhin is reloading, but have to keep juggling back and forth within aggro range or else they'll get poked out. But with the minion wave showing up, they have no choice but to back out of it. Right when the Casey bot laners double up on the same spot, Reckless finds a perfect opportunity to flash engage and gets a 2-man knockup securing the first blood. Owner immediately looks to dive the flashes Caitlyn, and Jhin barely gets the 4-shot before walking out. Lee Sin goes in again, but unluckily gets hit by the Rel stun that was already being charged up, preventing the W jump back, and gets picked off while Faker also gets ganked mid. Both teams play Aram for a bit until Faker walks up a little bit too far, forgetting what planet he was on for a second, and gets instantly flanked by KC since they know that Faker's flash is down. Owner sacrifices his support for the greater good, and Reckless goes down as well, with the support once again somehow taking every single kill. T1 are excited to see an old teammate and decide to throw Kana a housewarming party by all ganking him top lane. Yike didn't know what he was getting into when he followed his top laner, but realizes it's too late for him and does as much damage as he can before falling as well.
And he gets the sustain, gets a bit more damage, gets the knock as well, steals the Spirit Rush away, needs to wait a second for the cooldowns, but he goes underneath the tower! And Vladdy finds the solo kill!
Casey sees an opportunity and engage onto Gumayushi with a CC chain, and even though he flashes out, Diego follows up with his own flash and secures the kill on Jhin as Casey continued the chase. Owner looks for a play where he flash kicks the Rel, then follows up with a Q, but once again gets unlucky with the timing as he gets barely clipped by the end of the Rel knockup, which knocks him up long enough that he can't use both of his spells, and he gets bursted down as Reckless joins him soon after. T1 are out for blood though, as they immediately look for another fight, and Casey can only try to run away as they sacrifice Yike to the League Gods. Owner smells something suspicious going on in the river, and finds out real quick that there is indeed something going on as he has to flash away to safety, giving up the Herald. Casey rotates towards mid, and neither team is fully committed until Reckless sees an angle and gets a nice 2-man engage onto the Casey bot laners, and they focus down Caitlyn after kicking her over the wall. But Yike weaves around the fight and dodges the Lee Sin Q before committing identity fraud and kills Reckless as well. Faker teleports in and misses Charm by a mile, but I have yet to see any RMA land that spell recently, so it must be bugged, and he continues in with his ult. They snipe Rel as Jhin starts up his own ult.
Executed by the Jhin, and now the curtain call. Yike trying to dodge, but Faker slides in for another.
But it's not over as Silas teleports in from the top side looking for a play, and lands an E2 onto Jhin before getting charmed. Guma has the presence of mind to flash to the other side, so he doesn't get Lee Sin kicked into the turret, but somehow properly flashes to the worst spot imaginable as he gets kicked into Faker, and Ari has to flash out herself to escape. Renekton shows up awkwardly from the bottom, but sheepishly walks away after seeing he was late to the party. Faker lands a max range charm onto his former teammate, and they try to burst him down, but Rel gets a perfect counter engage to save Kana, but the rest of Casey are in the entirety of position, and Rel goes down alone. Kana goes for a crazy flash stun counter engage onto Faker, but it ends up being just crazy as he does no damage at all. Vladdy looks for a 1v1 onto Doran, and with both champions currently having a combined total of 2 billion dashes, makes it look like some kind of Dragon Ball fight, as Doran tries to retreat away from the Viego coming to help, and Doran gets picked off. T1 however answer back right away with a 2v1 gank of their own and avenge their fallen top laner. A brief scuffle happens in the jungle, and Ono gets an insane Lee Sin kick onto the Caitlyn as she regrets picking an ADC champion in 2024. And with the main damage dealer down, T1 keeps going to try to pick off someone else. Silas gets a clutch 2-man Recon onto Faker and Gumayushi, and Yike goes in, finishing off the Jhin before he can do anything. T1 try to save them, but that only leads to even more members falling, as KC capitalizes on T1's overextension, eventually picking off Faker as well. KC run for the Baron, but they don't actually have the damage to burst it down fast enough, and Doran positions himself so that Caitlyn can't arrive with DPS. And Bessa zones long enough that KC actually has to fall back as the rest of T1 slowly arrive. Honda gets hit by the Baron spell at the very edge, and it's an absolute disaster as T1 somehow managed to secure the Baron after losing everyone in the previous fight. T1 have all the momentum now, and KC goes for a final play as both Sylas and Renekton teleports behind to try to get a flank off. But Reckless pulls the trigger and focuses the Sylas before any of KC can get into position, and Vladdy gets bursted down immediately from the CC chain. And with Kana still too far away to help out, T1 get easy access to the backline, and KC get picked off one by one until they all go down. T1 take game 5 and secure the final win of the event, ending at a combined score of 2-3 against Europe, as Reckless says his final goodbyes to his former teammates. This event showed that even pro players can make a lot of mistakes, but still have fun along the way. There were a ton of memorable moments, both inside and outside the games, and was a great way to end off the year before the start of season 2025. Also, EU better than KR confirmed, since T1 were only able to win when they had Reckless on their team.